All right, so let's dive deep today, and I'm gonna show you some of my ad account stuff. And we're gonna focus on some things that sadly nobody's really talking about. When you open your ads manager, there are so many metrics to choose from. It can be completely overwhelming. The funny thing is, most of these metrics just don't matter. If you try to pay attention to even half of them, you'll end up getting confused and make way less money than if you paid attention to the most important 4. Yeah, that's right. You only need 4 metrics to run your entire Facebook ad account. You might be wondering what those 4 metrics are. Don't worry. Today we're gonna dive into it, and I'm gonna show you what they are, why they're useful, and this will hopefully save you tons of heartache and thousands of dollars of wasted spend. It's gonna put way more money in your pocket and ultimately help you make Facebook easy. It's really easy. So with that being said, strap in. This is gonna be fun, and we might have a special guest here in a second. So let's break down the first 2 metrics that you absolutely have to look at. Now, before we get any further, we are assuming that you have an account set up in broad only, that you're not wasting your money in lookalikes and retargeting and interest groups. And if you have those, that's fine. We'll dissect that stuff too, but understand that you don't need any of that stuff. What we're gonna talk about today will actually help you solve the problems that you think those things are solving in a way that makes Facebook smarter, makes you more money, and ultimately massively reduces your workload while also making scaling your business phenomenally easier. That's what we want anyway, right? So let's get to it. The first 2 metrics we're going to talk about is CPM and frequency. Now, what is CPM? This is cost per milli, or honestly, how much does your impression cost? What does 1,000 impressions cost? This is tremendously important, not because there's a good or a bad CPM, but because it's going to help us identify how Facebook is using your ad. When we index that against frequency, we're gonna know, even at broad, is this a prospecting ad? Is this a retargeting ad? Is it mid funnel? Is it bottom funnel? Is it doing well? Is it bad for us? We're gonna know all of those answers with just these 2 metrics. And I'm gonna help you decode that right now. So how do we decode these numbers? Well, let's get into it. First thing we have to remember is that generally speaking, what is a prospecting ad? A prospecting ad is something that people see at the top of the funnel, and it's generally cheaper to show to people, right? Because the audience is larger and we're showing it to more individuals less often, so their user experience is probably a little bit better. And what's a bottom funnel ad? Well, a bottom funnel ad is one that we show to people far more often, right? We're retargeting. And as a result of that, it's a smaller audience, and as a result of that, our cost per inventory is generally higher. If you're using retargeting, you're paying more money to reach the same amount of people more times. If we're doing prospecting, that same amount of money will reach a much larger number of people, and they're gonna be touched by that ad far less often. So top of funnel, cheaper. We reach them less often. Bottom funnel, far more expensive. We reach them more often. And so this, even at broad, will let us know how Facebook is using our ad. And there's also a bit of a caveat to this. If people don't like your ad, or if Facebook finds that there's just nobody that really wants to see it, your CPMs will also go up. And generally speaking, Facebook doesn't know right away where your ad is going to fit in the funnel. So the frequency you see on day 1 might be very different than the one you see on day 10. And over time, Facebook's gonna find where in the funnel that ad should be shown. So let's dive into an ad account, and I'm gonna show you exactly what you should be looking for.
Hi, I'm Charlie.
Okay.
I am asking you to like this video and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any future videos. And why? So that it can help return the investment on your time and on your money, so that you will be much more efficient and effective on your job. So subscribe and like this channel and get all of the benefits that come along with that. And with that being said, we can get back to it.
There you go. Great. All right, so what I've done is I changed cameras for a quick second, because I'm going to share my ad account and show you deep inside with 3 live ads. We're going to identify, using only CPM and frequency, how Facebook is using them inside the funnel. And we have to remember that in this ad account, we are using no targeting. It is broad only, right? So the only thing we're using is age, gender, location. This is women in America over the age of 18. And full disclosure, this is the last 7 days and about $9,000 in spend, 9,007. So that being said, let's get to it. What I'm just going to show you here is these 3 ads. So if we go over to the ad account, what we're going to see here is these CPMs. Now I have sorted these ads by amount spent. So the highest spending ad is on top, then the second, then the third. All right. Now that's really important. We'll get to all of the breakdowns and all of that stuff in a little bit. But here's the first thing. Our first ad, $18 CPM. Now our average is 24 across these 3. Remember, there's no such thing as a good or bad CPM. It's all relative to each other. So this ad out of these 3, according to the CPM, says that people like it. And when we look at the frequency, 1.06, 1.1, 1.04, 1.09, a 1.2 on one day. This is top of funnel. So people like it. The CPM is low, so that's also telling us it's top of funnel. When we look at the frequency by day, it's a top of funnel ad. Now let's go to the next ad. The next one has a CPM of 43. Now, first, right off the bat, we might say, well, people probably don't like this ad as much. Potentially so. Now we look at our frequency per day and we see it's 1.05, 1.18. This is averaging at least a 1.15 or higher. If your ad averages over a 1.15, it is retargeting. That means, for instance, on this day, 26% of people that saw this ad saw it twice. That's a retargeting ad. If over 25% of the people that saw that ad saw it more than once that day, that says something. So now we know the CPM is higher, so it's probably a mid-funnel ad. And we look at the frequency and, oh yeah, definitely mid-funnel. Okay, now we can understand that, well, these 2 ads are kind of working together somehow. We have a prospecting ad and we have a retargeting ad. That's, full disclosure, probably a mid-funnel. Now, a bottom funnel ad is going to be something where it's a 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. And the honest truth is, at Broad, you probably don't have that many bottom funnel ads. And if you do, they better be really, really good. But we'll get to all that in a second. Now, the third ad, $29 CPM, tells us this should probably be in the retargeting section, right? It's more expensive than the average. So by CPM alone, this is telling us it's in upper mid funnel, maybe lower upper funnel. Like, this is definitely not a top of funnel ad, pure prospecting. And then we look to the frequency, 1.09, 1.13, 1.2, 1.07, 1.12. This is definitely lower in the funnel than this ad that was at $18. Which makes sense because we also look at the CPM. It's telling us that it's lower in the funnel. So with these ads right here, what we already understand with these 3 ads at Broad is that we have one upper funnel. We have one mid funnel, maybe being used in this Broad as sort of the bottom funnel effort. And we have something else that's a mid. We've got an upper, mid, and bottom funnel ad very clearly, just shown by the CPM and the frequency. So now let's get to the other part that really, really matters. So now we have to focus on the other 2 metrics, spend and efficiency. Now in this case, we're showing a campaign that should be driving purchases. So it's a CPA, cost per purchase. Now it could very easily be a CPL, CPR, cost per lead, cost per registration, cost per app download, whatever it is that we're targeting towards. It's how efficient is this at doing that job? Now, the reason we need to care about this is, number one, spend is going to tell us what is the contribution of this to our bottom line. And CPA is also going to tell us, does this thing do well at its job? Now, we're also going to find in a lot of ad accounts, the ad that does the best never gets any spend. We're going to break down why that happens almost all the time and why you shouldn't be concerned about that at all. And we're going to talk about why sometimes that bad ad that gets all the spend isn't actually that bad. And you turning it off might be the worst thing that you could do. Back to camera B. Let's dive back into this ad account, all right? Now, our first ad in the amount spent shows that it spent the most money, which as the prospecting ad makes sense. Now, the second ad that was to be sort of our bottom funnel effort, that spent the second most amount of money, which also kind of makes sense, right? Prospecting spent more than retargeting. And then this third one that was sort of a mid-funnel thing we were trying to figure out, it seems like Facebook spent half as much on that as it did on the other retargeting ad, which means we've got something to dive into. And when we look at the CPA, we're actually going to get a very telling story of what's going on. So with that being said, let's look at the CPAs here. Now, our average cost, $73 83. So that's our Facebook level metric of the cost per acquisition for these 3 ads. Now let's see how they're working together. Our prospecting ad, number 1, right? The $18 CPM with the very low relative frequency on any given day. On this day, literally, nobody saw the ad more than once, and it spent hundreds of dollars. And the CPA on that day was 168. We might say, oh my God, what is going on? But I don't care, because we also know that this ad is filling the funnel. Now, if we look to our bottom funnel, lower mid thing that we're looking here, that's the $43, spent $3,000, and hey, look, the cost per purchase is 68 bucks. Now, on some days it wasn't as good, and on some days it was better. Now let's look at this. The day where this ad had the lowest frequency, where it was doing the most prospecting work, it had a 1.12 frequency. This would technically be considered a lower top of funnel ad on that day. And the cost per purchase was $141. And you might say, oh my God, Facebook is so unstable. I can't imagine ever running this ad again. But I don't care. Because again, last 7 days, it's coming in at a 68. This is telling me that this ad is actually better than the prospecting ad at driving sales efficiently. And you might say, well, why doesn't this ad get more spend? Well, because it's a retargeting ad, right? It's not designed to drive more spend. The more money that the prospecting ad spends, the more money that this ad can spend. And ultimately, if we start to do some quick math, our average cost is more than that. We've got $73.83 on our average cost. So what's going on? Well, that other ad that we couldn't quite figure out where it is in the funnel, and it looks like maybe Facebook hasn't either, and it spent half as much as the one above it, and it spent half as much as the retargeting ad, well, that CPA was really bad, 86.9. Now you could go down through here and say, oh, there's a 63 and 132, and you said on those other days that was okay, and yeah, when it was 132, that day was a 1.07 on our frequency. But even then, the CPM on that day was a 35. Our other prospecting ads coming in the teens. So if this is actually going to be used as a prospecting ad, it's really bad at it, right? Because the other one, this other ad is a prospecting ad that is half as much to show to people based on CPM. And the cost per purchase is better on average than 132. It's almost half that at 73. So objectively speaking, this ad isn't doing prospecting very well at all. And then we take a look at, well, what about the days where it was more of a retargeting ad? What did we see? Well, when it was a retargeting ad, when that frequency was over a 1.15, spent $300, spent $69. What about that day where it spent $367? Our cost per purchase, 91. When this thing's a retargeting ad, it does a really bad job. So with this, we know that this ad isn't good for prospecting, isn't good for bottom of funnel, and isn't earning spend, which means objectively, this ad is bad. I don't care what the creative director said about it. I don't care what the testing said. In the real world, spending over $1,000 a day, this thing can't earn more than a couple $100, and when it does so, it does terrible. Hey guys, real quick, if you want to join an exclusive community to learn from me and have all of the SOPs for all of your documentation, systems, and processes, and learn how to do all of this stuff and more in an easy way where over the next few weeks, it's like if you hired me to the point where I would train you so you wouldn't even need me. Check out the first link down below for the Facebook Ads MBA program. It is the single best investment you can make in learning how Facebook runs better than 95% of the people on the planet. And it's a CMO development program that has its own community, weekly calls, and lifetime access. You literally can't get anything better than that. With that being said, let's get back to it. So with those 4 metrics alone, we already understand, is this a good ad? Is this a bad ad? How is Facebook using it? Why is it getting more spend? Why isn't it getting more spend? And is it contributing to our bottom line, or is it a complete liability? With that information, we know the easiest way to make this ad set better is to either just turn off that bad ad or to test with dynamic creatives in our one campaign setup to do this same concept, but better. We clearly have a prospecting ad that's effective. We clearly have a mid-funnel, lower mid-funnel, bottom funnel ad that's doing pretty well. So what are we missing? Either a better prospecting ad or something that's more bottom of funnel that's going to bring in $30, $40, $50 sales, or something that's mid-funnel funnel that may be able to do that job of the $43 CPM at a 35. And any one of those things is a win. So the only thing we have to test with our creative testing is trying to solve that one problem. Now, the last thing we're going to take a look at here is the breakdown. And I'm going to show you when you're trying to analyze how Facebook is using your information, pretty much the only thing that matters. Now, when we go in to do this analysis of the frequency to figure out where that ad is sitting, the only thing that matters is when we go to breakdown, time, and day. We don't care about week over week because the spend is going to dramatically change how often that ad is shown to people. If it spends 5 times as much, the frequency might be higher, even though it's a prospecting ad, because it's literally shown 5 times more. So when we're analyzing how broad is using the ad, we only need the last 7 days. We only need to break down by day. Now, if we want to check our work just to see if this actually makes sense, here's what I do. I'm going to go to breakdown, time, week, and then I'm going to go last 30 days. Now, we said before, what? We've got a prospecting ad. We've got a bottom funnel retargeting ad, and those two together are working pretty well. And we've got another ad that isn't quite a prospecting ad that does well because it does poorly when it prospects, and isn't really a retargeting ad that does well because, well, it does poorly when it's retargeting. Now, when we look at this over the last 30 days, we're only going to change one thing. We're going to sort alphabetically. We're going to hit this button twice. We want this little arrow to say add down. And what this is going to do for us is it's going to put most recent thing in the top, and we go back in time. It's going back in time. Now we can see what's happening here. Now, the first thing we're going to do is just ignore this top line, because that's what have you done for me lately? And delayed attribution that happens just because of delaying of passing information back and forth. We know that this is incomplete data. So we can more or less ignore that data. Now, what do we see here? This ad, well, this line item says it's a 46, but if we go back through the weeks, this was 46, 27, 28, 25, okay? And then we see frequency is pretty steady. All right. So something happened more recently where this ad was pushed further down the funnel, potentially. And we see that the spend on that week was also less, which also tells us it might have been pushed further down the funnel, especially when it has a lower spend and basically this frequency is on the same par as it was back here when it was at 1.28, but on a third of the spend, a quarter of the spend. Yeah, this got pushed into retargeting. So what do we find? What's the next move? What's our CPA? Oh, it got a little bit better. All right, so Facebook is doing something. Got it. Now, there's probably other things going on, emails, sales, other ads, whatever happening, but we understand what's going on here. This is already our sort of retargeting ad as it is, right? Remember, this is the one with the $30. So when we filter this by time, what shows up at the top is actually alphabetically speaking. Now, I've obfuscated the ad names and the previews to protect the innocent, and I gotta respect the client. Say, look, we're spending $1 million a week. I have to respect the contracts, right? But I'm being as transparent as legally possible. So this is the ad that was the second one before when we sorted by amount spent, and still is, right? 10,000, 18,004. But because of alphabetical arrangement, it comes first. So remember, this was our mid-funnel, bottom funnel ad. And hey, look, it was 20s. Last week, it got a little bit more expensive and okay. And looking at these numbers here as 1,300, 800, 5,600, 15. It's all over the place, but it's still more or less being used in the same part of the funnel. And the performance, it's still kind of being in the same exact place. As a matter of fact, when this thing gets more spent, it does better. So now, one of the things we're going to say is, wow, it went from a 60 to an 80. Okay. It also went from $800 to $5,600. Okay, we went from $860 in spend to nearly $5,700, and our average cost is $84. And on that week, it went from a 61 to an 80. Do we care that we just spent more money at below our average cost? Of course not. That's a good thing. So let's look at the next one. Going over time, let's see, 22, 25, 22, 20. This thing is just proving that people really seem to like this ad, and it's staying as a top of funnel effort. And we get to hear the frequency right around the same. They say, well, this one was okay, 1.9 frequency. Okay. Now what? Let's check the spend, right? Oh, look at that. 6,000. So the week where it has the highest frequency is also the week where it has the highest amount of spend. And when we go to the overall performance, the week where it had the lowest amount of spend was the worst week performance-wise. And the week where it had the highest amount of spend was right on average with what we can expect out of this. It's an 84 average. This week was an 83.5. Phenomenal. This is consistent. Yes, the numbers are all over the place, but when we look week to week, hey, we have a very good idea of where this is going to come out. Now let's look at that third ad. And this, ironically, is still also the third ad in amount spent. It's also the third ad when we sort sort by ad name to give us chronological. And what do we have? 33, 41, 32, 30. This thing's trying to figure out where does it sit in the funnel. Okay. And do people like it? Well, they seem to be liking it more and more recently. Okay. Not as much as any of the other ads, but all right. Well, maybe there's a performance thing that tells us where is it in the funnel. Well, it's sometimes more or less prospecting 1.1, 1.07. Sometimes it's more in that retargeting 125. So it's basically doing the same thing as the prospecting ad, and it's sometimes doing the same thing as the retargeting ad, but it never earns spend. And thank you, Facebook, for not spending on this. Because remember, Facebook is really smart. It knows exactly what it's doing. And look at these CPAs. 114, 130, 227. And now it's bouncing back a little bit to being just a little bit worse than the average. Do we need to look at anything other than this? No. Let me tell you why. We don't need to see any more information than this. Because ultimately, we can't take action on any more information than this. And this is telling us everything. What does Facebook want to spend on? How efficient is it? Where is it in the funnel? How much do people in that part of the funnel like that thing? And if we want to get better at our ad account, what do we need to focus on? Is there legitimately any other information that you need? So this tells us literally everything that we need. How much ad spend does that ad earn? How efficient is it when we spend there? Where in the funnel, even at broad, is Facebook using this? And how good is it at doing that job? And most importantly, what do we need to do to make this ad account more efficient or to maintain efficiency and increase spend? Well, looking at just these 4 metrics, we have the answer to literally all of those things. And we can give very specific, laser-focused creative direction for what we're going to do in our DCT to make this campaign better. Very specifically, we're going to go in one of 3 directions, depending on our resources, our needs, our creative team, a backlog of testing and other data. We can pick whatever one of those we want to focus on, but it's really one of 3 things. Number 1, we want to find another prospecting ad that might also bring in a slightly different type of attention. The answer to that is probably no. Why? Because this is already effective. And if we spent more money on prospecting, we're probably going to get less efficient. So that's probably not the route we want to go. All right, let's go route number 2. Maybe what we need here is a really good bottom funnel ad. Now we've shown that we don't really have one, right? Even our retargeting ad that was good was still 1.15, 1.2. We don't have anything that's in the 1.3s, 1.4, 1.5. And I'd argue that that's probably a really strong path to go down, because ultimately, if we can get that ad that's coming in at a 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, and the CPA on that is coming in at a 40, 50, well, that's phenomenal. And if that thing only spends 20% of my budget, I'm stoked because my average is going to come down dramatically. Oh, we have path number 3, which is we seem to have an ad that Facebook loves to use as a retargeting ad. But man, that CPM, not thrilled about it being in the upper 20s, lower 40s, considering our prospecting ad is in the teens. So what if we can find an ad that solves more or less the same need in the customer journey, but comes in at a high teens, low 20s, mid 20s, and has the same CPA? If we can find that, it's going to spend phenomenally more than the one we have because it's meeting Facebook's business objectives better. And now we have a very easy choice. Do we want to improve our retargeting, or do we want to try to do better at prospecting? We've already decided the prospecting is probably not the problem. So now you know exactly what your creative test and your DCT and your one campaign needs to be to move forward. And we'll close with this. Remember this sticky note, right? Remember this sticky note. What we're looking at right here is the winner's ad set. Now these 2 DCTs, looking at just these 4 metrics, we have extreme confidence that those DCTs probably should be focusing on building a retargeting ad. And if we get a hit, our efficiency on this campaign is going to dramatically improve, which ultimately improves our PSM, which ultimately means we can spend more money, which ultimately means we're going to scale our business. And we don't need lookalikes, we don't need retargeting, we don't need cost caps, we don't need advantage shopping, we don't need any of those hacky hacks. Remember, Facebook hacks are for Facebook hacks. hacks. And now you have everything that you need to be better than like 95% of people that run Facebook ads. I hope that makes sense, and I'm sure you have a lot of questions with these things, so please ask them down below, and you'll also see down below, again, the link for the Facebook Ads MBA program. You'll also see links for Disruptor School, my newsletter, the merch store, and how to get one-on-one consulting time with me so we can dive into your ad account and figure all this stuff out in a fun way on a chat with you and me on the call together. So I'm hoping that this is all kind of making sense, and you realize that all of the hacks that you've been taught and all the information that you've been told is important actually doesn't mean anything. If you notice, we don't have anything about CPC in here. Why? Because it's Facebook. CPC does not matter. We don't have CTR in here. Why? Because it's Facebook. CTR does not matter. We don't have hook rate in here. Why? Because there's nothing that hook rate's going to do at telling us whether this ad is good or not, because hook rate will only inform the CPM, the frequency, the spend in the CPM. By that point, it's completely useless information. Anyway, we also don't have ROAS in here. Why? Because that's not real money. That's not even a real thing. That's like trying to weigh the dreams of a unicorn, right? It's an impossible measurement of a thing that doesn't actually exist. You don't need anything besides this information to get yourself to the point where you're spending $1 million a week. And the ad account that I showed today, it started less than 2 years ago at $50,000 a month. Now we're doing $50 million a year, and it'll probably double by the end of the year. It is quite literally this easy. And I love to make things easy. And one of my biggest things here is to try to teach you how this stuff works. And if you like this and you want more information, remember, down below, you can ask questions on any of this stuff here, and I will get back to you. I respond to comments every single day. You'll also find links for the Facebook Ads MBA program, which is the single greatest investment you can make in making yourself truly elite at Facebook. It's an intensive Facebook Ads and CMO development program. It's like if you were to hire me to teach you how to do things, and in a couple months, you wouldn't even need me anymore. And you have lifetime access to weekly calls and a beautiful community that only ever grows. These are appreciating assets. You can also find links to the Disruptor School, the newsletter, and merch, and consulting calls, one-on-one time with me so we can screen share into your ad account and figure out how to make all this stuff work, because you deserve more success. You can absolutely get by on way less stress and be making way more money while working a lot less. You deserve it. I help people do this every single day. With that being said, YouTube thinks you might like a couple of these videos. Don't forget to smash the button, and until next time, I'll see you on the internet. Bye!